Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Friday, February 19th, 2021. All right, now I'm on airplane mode. Use my phone for this extravaganza. And just making sure, wish our brothers and sisters out in the Lone Star State be safe. A lot of tragic, horrific events are happening over there. And of course, you got the political opportunists who wants to blame one party or another, which is totally irrelevant. And nothing to praise over. But one thing we always got to learn is try to prepare ourselves to the best of our ability. And what was occurring in that state, something like this occurred around December 19th, 1983, that lasted like 9 days. It was around the teens of most of the state. So, and that's why when folks gonna move to other places, always get to know the history and of what's going to occur and just be prepped up. Because sometimes individuals, they may take things for granted and don't even know it. It happens to all of us. I'm just saying this in a human element. It's like even with Florida, South Florida, with Hurricane Andrew. Many of us that survived it, we learned how to better ourselves and have a system and a drill. Then when more folks come down here, they just freak out when a big hurricane's coming through. That's like what happened with Irene a few years ago. So just let you, sort of keep you guys posted, even though they're both different, but talk about natural disasters as a whole. So, and of course, the climate change experts are going out, men of science and so forth, but how many of them are actually bought and paid for by the World Economic Forum? One thing you folks got to do, always, it's like to everybody, no matter where you're at, always find ways of being self-contained in these times. And always look out to your neighbors and so forth. Love your neighbor. Be neighborly. And I'll give one prop to one older gentleman, has a place in Houston, furniture shop, and letting people get in there, had the heat, because he knows. And that's good. That's what you need. That's what you got to do, and learn from those individuals. Educate yourselves, and you could enhance your family, your clan, your loved ones. So that's the way it is. And of course, I did my past show talking about the Texas nationalist movement, saying it was too much federal overreach. Remember, green energy has its strength and pros and cons as well. A lot of the 42% of the energy was bombed by windmills. So, and I know Texas does have them. So all you green energy fanatics out there, always keep those options open. If you go one way, it doesn't work. Always multitask. That's not just for them, but for everyone else. And you could add yours truly to the list, all right? And I know what I have to do if I'm into a bind where my other place is at in the mountain state. So, but everyone out there, just folks out there in Texas and everyone else that got affected by the winter storms, be safe, be warm, and always better yourself. Prepare yourself for the very near future if it happens again. All right. I know it's loud out here. I'm at the Downtowner Saloon, located at 10 South New River Drive in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it's right in the corner of the Southeast Avenue Bridge, right near the jail and the courthouse. So, pretty cool place, historical. I see a lot of old pictures, almost 100 years old, how Fort Lauderdale used to look like. I think it's real cool. So it's always good to know the history of the community you live at. You appreciate it a lot more. So, all right. So you hear some excitement in the air and so forth, noise in the background. I'm in the corner. That's okay. So I'm going to be just brief doing one article here. And it's, but all will be distracted with going on at the mayhem, what happening in Texas, of course, and Andrew Cuomo, what's going on in New York. People are very angry up there. And I'll let you and I know, like, even in Florida, I see a lot of people from New York moving down here. So that tells you something. If someone asked me about a photo of saying about me having this honorable governor in Florida, and I have to say this. I have my disagreements with the man, but tell me who's the better governor at this moment. So that's why I gotta look at it. Because you know what? I know I live here. I know for a fact what's going on. I don't need the mainstream garbage, newspapers and media telling me what's happening in my state or my county. I know firsthand. So if you're gonna throw something like that at me, back it up. And I say that out of love, no condemnations whatsoever. So this one here came out yesterday by Christian Gomez, the New American. I know he is a John Birch Society member. But it says here, the aggressive new scheme exposed as Article 5 convention lobby. And as it reads here, the United States is dangerously close to Congress calling a convention for proposing amendments under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, otherwise known as the Constitutional Convention, Convention of the States, or Article 5 Convention, A5C, based on a new scheme for aggregated, counting, and combining applications submitted by state legislators. Article 5 provides two methods for proposing amendments to the Constitution. First method states the Congress, whatever 2/3 of the House, both houses, shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to its Constitution. This method by which every ratified amendment to the Constitution has been proposed. The Second Amendment, which has never been utilized, states Congress, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, or 34 out of 50, shall call a convention for proposing amendments. And that usually takes 3/4 of the states to ratify amendments. Senate Resolution 29, currently before General Assembly of Georgia, applies to Congress call an Article 5 convention to propose a federal enhanced balanced budget, BBA, to the Constitution. It purports to aggregate or combine the live or outstanding application from 27 states to have recently passed applications for the BBA convention with centuries-old applications from 6 other states to have applied for a supposedly unlimited plenary convention. If SR 29 should pass, Georgia would make it the 34th state based on the new aggregation scheme. However, this raises the question, why are A5C advocates suddenly looking at new ways to reach the threshold of 34 states, and who's pushing this new scheme? Ever since Mark Meckler, co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots, and radical leftist Lawrence Lessig, a Harvard Law School professor, co-hosted the Constitutional Convention Conference at Harvard Law School in 2017. The convention lobby has been falsely assuring state legislators that every application for A5C needs to be the same or similar to get to 34 in order to convince legislators that the convention won't become a runaway convention, which delegates propose an amendment or amendments that go beyond the original scope of the convention, such as repealing past amendments. Second Amendment, for example, or go even further by drafting an entirely new constitution. The truth is that nothing in Article 5 states that the applications have to be the same or similar, that applications have to be limited to a single amendment or subject, or that the convention must be limited to the subject of the application. These are modern fabrications designed to mislead legislators, and legislators who don't research both sides repeat these falsehoods while debating in legislative chambers all over the country. In 2020, article titled A Convention Strategy, published on the Pro A5C website, huntforliberty.com, convention proponents Paul Gardner, Ron Scott, and Neil Schur admit that admit the following. Additionally, some constitutional scholars believe that even in a so-called limited COS nothing, except the COS rules established by the delegates themselves, will prevent amendments being voted upon are outside the limitations stated in COS applications. Emphasis added. The article continues, finally, other important consideration in determining a strategic direction for the AVCOS or A5C movement are the opinions of several Constitution scholars, Paulsen, Black, Dellinger, Kaplan, et al., that Congress lacks authority to call and sanction a limited COS. Clearly, these convention proponents believe that an Article 5 convention does not have to be limited to the proposed for which it is called unless delegates themselves decide to follow the original purpose of the convention, but they don't have to. So it's a game of exceptionalism, compromise, invalid practices, a la the impeachment hearings. Aggregation scheme or origins. The promotion of the new aggregation scheme can also be traced to Gardner's article. He reveals that A5C advocates are concerned about recent rescission efforts and as a result must put for A5C as soon as possible before any more outstanding applications are rescinded. In concert with the axiom that timing is everything in the view of the increased risk of COS application rescission efforts in different states, it would be a very wise action to have a COS successfully convened and conducted no later than the end of 2022, Gardner pleads. He also cites in January 2020, Article 5 Convention Legislative Progress Report in which Georgia-based attorney David F. Gundelshoe reluctantly admits that the A5C movement has experienced a platooning in its efforts to reach the necessary 3 or 4 states. The last half of the past decade saw the Article 5 movement peak, but the last 2 years have seen the platooning of our efforts. We are now down to 4 major groups. The Center for the State Lead National Debt Solutions, which is a 501c3 arm of the BBA Task Force, U.S. Term Limits, Wolfpack Free and Fair Elections, and the Convention of States Projects. Goldenshoe writes, readers should keep in mind that Wolfpack is a left-wing group started by Young Turks founder Sinek Eager. Gardner then proposes that the A5C movement supported the aggregation or combining of different 5AC applications in order to reach the necessary 34 states. In concert with the axiom bird in the hand is worth to vote in the bush. It makes good sense to use whatever qualifying COS applications are available to have a COS convened as soon as possible. Further, convening a general COS outcomes the risk of SCOTUS ruling against the legitimacy of Congress having authority to call and sanction a limited COS. Gardner cites 2 recent aggregation studies completed in 2018 based on writings of noted A5C advocates Michael Stokes Paulsen, Robert G. Nadelson, Professor Akil Amar, Charles L. Black Jr., Kenneth James Rogers, David C. Huckabee, Donis M. Durbin, Walter E. Dellinger, and Russell Kaplan. The first study was produced by the American Constitutional Foundation and the second by attorney James M. Cogswell. Both the ASC and Cogswell aggregation studies concluded that there are not at least 34 valid qualifying applications to require Congress to call a general or limited convention. concludes this article with the following recommendation from the ACF. The comprehensive strategy of ACF or similar strategy needs to be seriously considered and funded and planned to make application to the Congress to call a general COS. Below, for example, are some of the more important actions listed by ACF. Organize the states that have already submitted applications for an Article 5 General Convention to affirm that the applications remain valid and enforced, and that they expect Congress to discharge their duty to call the convention. Work with additional states, if necessary, to remove limiting language from existing application or pass a new application for the Article 5 General Convention to attain the 34 applications needed to trigger the convention. Equip the state attorney generals for litigation to compel Congress to call the convention should it be necessary. Hold a pre-convention assembly to prepare state legislators to effectively participate in the convention and provide states with logistical support from pre-convention all the way through ratification, including facilities, security, communications, media, and legal support. This is a key, as it reveals their strategy to reach 34 states. They want to aggregate the different A5C applications by removing any limiting language from existing applications that may hinder aggregation, and they want to pursue litigation to force the call for a convention. The last bullet point, providing states with the logistical support from pre-convention all the way through ratification, including facilities, security, and communications, media, and legal support. We will require an exorbitant amount of money to carry out. This raises questions of where such a vast revenue stream is coming from. And if A5C cannot go astray, as they have been assuring legislators for years, why would the state legislators need all of this logistical support all the way through the ratification process? Furthermore, what kind of pressure or support will the A5C lobby exert on the convention delegates? In addition to Gardner's article, A5C enthusiast Robert Nadelson has called for aggregation application. On June 7, 2018, Nadelson wrote a paper titled Federalism and Separation of Powers with the subtitle Counting to Two-Thirds, How Close Are We Want to a Convention for Proposed Amendments. In the paper, Nadelson concluded in part, when counting applications toward a convention for proposing a balanced budget amendment or indeed toward a convention for proposing any other kind of amendment, Congress should add to the count any extant pioneer applications. David Biddulph, the co-founder of Let Us Vote for a Balanced Budget Amendment Citizens Campaign, promoted a similar aggregation scheme in a presentation he gave to the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, on July 21st, 2020. According to the Associated Press article, new plan presented during the ALEC workshop with a PowerPoint presentation from conservative activist David Biddulph is to take the 28-state resolution seeking a balanced budget amendment and combine with the 6-state solution passed over the last 2 centuries, generally seeking a constitutional convention. The AP report is seen as chart titled 34 active Article 5 applications produced by Let Us Vote for the BBA. The oldest of those was a resolution passed by New York in 1789, according to a new 2018 article on the Conservative Federal Society website by constitutional scholar Robert G. Nadelson. The AP explained Biddulph, like Gardner, recommends, based on the ACF aggregation study, that each state attorney general should be equipped for litigation to compel Congress to call the convention should it be necessary. According to the AP, Biddulph proposed recruiting state attorneys to generals to file a legal order demanding that Congress recognize that 34 state resolutions and convene a constitutional convention. If Congress refuses, the AGs will sue in federal court. Biddulph reportedly told the AP that a lawsuit was the best shot for getting Congress to call a convention. Constitutional organizations such as John Birch Society, Eagle Forum, Phyllis Schlafly, Eagles and Philadelphia Eagles and Ron Paul's Campaign for Liberty have long opposed the convening of an Article 5 convention for proposing amendments because they say convention delegates as sovereign representatives of we the people will have the inherent right to propose any and all amendments or to alter or to abolish our form of government, i.e. propose a new constitution as expressed by the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. In fact, new proposed constitutions have already been drafted waiting for such an opportunity to formally propose them. Take, for instance, the Fourth Foundation funded Constitution to the New States of America. Interesting. Okay, proposed by Rexford Tugwell in 1974. Tugwell, who was previously the head of the FDR's New Deal Brain Trust and the chairman of the 1948 Platform Committee for the Socialist Progressive Party, was hired by the Fourth Foundation to assemble a team of academics to rewrite the U.S. Constitution in time for America's bicentennial. Tugwell's The New States Constitution waters down God-given individual rights and state sovereignty. Article 12 of the proposed New States Constitution calls for an acceptance by referendum or national popular vote. Voting machines, anyone, ergo, the 2020 election. Enter Georgia. On January 27, 2021, Georgia State Senator Bill Calzert, Republican from Athens, introduced before the Georgia General Assembly the Senate Resolution 29, a resolution applying for Congress for an Article 5 convention for the ostensible purpose for proposing a balanced budget amendment. However, SR 29's unique wording is a first of its kind among A5C applications. Below is the convoluted wording, which reads alike in any other DBA application, especially at lines 21 to 32. I'll just read here. 21. Be further resolved that this application shall be deemed an application 4A 22 convention to address the only subject herein stated for the purpose of determining 23. Whatever 2/3 of the states have upheld for a convention addressing any of the subjects, 24, stated herein, this application is to be aggregated with the application of any other state, 25. Legislators for the single subjects of balancing the federal budget, including but not limited 26 to previously adopted applications from Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, 27, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, 28, Missouri, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, 29, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, 30, Utah, West Virginia, Wyoming, and Wisconsin, and this application shall be aggregated with 31, the same for the purpose of attaining the 2/3 of the states necessary to require the calling, 32, of a convention, but shall not be aggregated with any applications or any other subject. The 60s that emphasize in above italics have not passed the DBA convention. Applications listed below are the 6 states, along with Article 5 convention applications that Senator Calzert wants to combine with the 27 applications for the BBA convention. New York, New Jersey, Kentucky, Illinois, Oregon, Washington. I'll just go back to New York, 1789 for the Bill of Rights. New Jersey, 1861 to prevent the Civil War. Kentucky, 1861 to prevent the Civil War. Illinois, 1861 to prevent the Civil War. Oregon for the direct election of U.S. Senators, that's in 1901. And Washington, 1901 for no stated purpose other than Congress simply called a convention for proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States of America as authorized by Article 5. Robert Nadelson, in his 2018 paper, Federalism and Separation of Powers, regards the 6 applications as being plenary. Whether or not they are plenary or an unlimited convention is irrelevant, and ultimately it would be up to Congress to decide which applications to agree. Senate Resolution 29 appears to be a trial balloon by the convention lobby to test the integration scheme meant to trigger an Article 5 convention as soon as possible without bothering to pass any additional unpopular applications through state legislators. It bellies the promises that A5C spokesmen have been making to legislators for at least the past 8 years that their applications for a limited convention would prevent a runaway convention. Legislators aren't being told the truth. The hypocrisy is clear in Georgia because Senator Calsworth, the leading co-sponsor of SR 29, told his colleagues on the Georgia Senate floor on March 12, 2020, that all 33 states listed SR 29 and amended into his 2020 predecessor, SR 1854, had all passed applications for BBA convention. And he said that we were added specifically to prevent a runaway convention. Calsworth told his fellow lawmakers, this is a single subject matter specific, asking only for there to be an amendment on the balancing the budget presented or considered by the states. That's the reason for Amendment 1, which we'll go to speak to. I heard feedback in the halls and from constituents. They wanted to make sure that this was not a runaway convention to totally revamp our United States Constitution. So the amendment tightens up and specifies the states that already have balanced budget amendment applications into the United States Congress and makes it clear that we're restrained to only that one subject matter. Responding to a question brought up by another senator who was concerned about the potential of combining the BBA application with the application of other states that apply for a convention for another purpose, Calsworth replied in part, there are states that have applications on their subject matter. They would not be considered as one of the 2/3 of the states that require to join in calling for a constitutional amendment convention or just balancing the federal budget. So I have built a safeguard in there for you so that doesn't get lumped and we end up having multiple amendments, multiple subject matters considered. But Senator Calsworth has not removed that so-called safeguard by including a great aggregation language in both SR 854 and SR 29 that does the opposite on what he said when promoting SR 854 in 2020. The biggest hurdle for convention advocates such as Senator Calsworth is passing A85C applications are the legitimate concerns from other legislators and their constituents about the runaway convention where any and all amendments may be proposed. For example, the convention becomes a runaway convention. Delegates in favor of gun control may push to abolish or at least severely weaken the Second Amendment. Delegates may go even further and propose an entirely new constitution with an easier ratification process. In the event that a new constitution is proposed, a new constitution would have its own mode of ratification, such as 7th Article of the U.S. Constitution. Ultimately, the mode of ratification for a new constitution would be to its framers rather than being bound by Article 5. This already happened and is how our current Constitution came to be, replacing the previous Articles of Confederation. Looking back to see forward, the Continental Congress and the states originally tasked the delegates to the 1787 Philadelphia Constitutional Convention with the sole and express purpose of revising these Articles of Confederation. At the time, the Articles of Confederation were supreme law of the land. Article 13 of the Articles of Confederation specifically stipulated that any alteration made to the Articles of Confederation has to be unanimous, agreed to in the Congress of the United States, and afterwards confirmed by the legislatures of every state. But both these mandates were clearly exceeded. Delegates instead choose to replace the Articles of Confederation with an entirely new federal constitution. And they also altered the mode of ratification from being confirmed by the legislators of every state, according to the Article 13 of still self-governing Articles of Confederation to ratification by only 9 of 13 states. Article 7, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution states the ratification for the Convention of the 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of the Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. So, supermajority. We got that now, 9 to 13, and you add that percentage for 50 states. Self-explanatory. Who is to say that the same historical precedent won't be used again to draft an entirely new, perhaps even socialist constitution that would be considered ratified by the way of a national referendum and modern popular appeal to democracy? This would enable those pushing for a new constitution to claim popular support. Then they may simply have control of the voting machines and therefore control of the outcome. This is why any Article 5 convention, including one ostensibly limited to proposing a single subject or amendment, or such as a BBA, should be avoided at all costs. Despite the claims by A5C advocates, such as Calvert, Gardner, Nadelson, Biddulph, and Mecker, and Lessig, that convention is necessary because it's the only solution to reign in Washington. The truth is that Article 5 was never meant to restrain the federal government's usurpation of power. The framers of the Constitution drafted Article 5 to remedy any potential defects in the Constitution. Potential defects, not just change it expensiveness. So, according to James Madison notes on the Federal Convention of 1787, Alexander Hamilton explained on September 10, 1787, that the proposed amendments was for supplying archaic use, meaning to remedy defects which probably appear in the new system. And in the Federalist number 85, Hamilton further explained the corrective purpose amendments, writing in part, in opposition to the probability of subsequent amendments, it has been urged that persons delegated to the administration of the national government will always be disinclined to wield up any portion of the authority of which they were once possessed. For my own part, I acknowledge a thorough conviction that any amendments which may, upon mature consideration, be thought useful will be applicable to the organization of the government, not to the mass of its powers. Today's problem in Washington does not stem from defects in the Constitution, but rather Washington's departure from the Constitution's original meanings and interpretation. Just as an informed electorate would be necessary for upholding any new amendments, so too is an informed electorate necessary for the preservation of the current U.S. Constitution. Therefore, the solution is not a lack of new amendments, but a lack of education about and fidelity to the current Constitution. In Chapter 17 by Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America, published in 1831, de Tocqueville, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, observed how well the average American citizen understood the Constitution. In New England, every citizen receives the elementary notions of human knowledge. He is moreover taught the doctrines and the evidences of his religion, the history of his country, and the leading features of his Constitution. In the states of Connecticut and Massachusetts, it is extremely rare to find a man imperfectly acquainted with all of these things, and a person wholly ignorant of them is a sort of phenomenon. Would be a modern-day de Tocqueville, traveling through America in 2021, be able to write or say the same about American citizens in any given state? Without such widespread knowledge among the American electorate today about the Constitution or its underpinning philosophy of inherent God-given rights, individualism, and freedom from oppressive government, This author should also tremble at the results of an A5C today, as the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia said during an appearance on an episode of Caleb Report on April 17, 2014, quote, "I certainly would not want a constitutional convention. I mean, whoa, who knows what will come out of that," unquote. Yet today's main AC5 groups, Convention of States Project, BBA Task Force, Let Us Vote for BBA, Wolfpack, and U.S. term limits have been misled in the public and state legislators for years, telling them that the state legislators will control the convention process, that Congress has only a ministerial role to call a time and a date of the convention, that the state legislators will control their delegates to the convention, that the delegates must stick to the subject of the application, and that all states have to pass the same subject application to be accounted toward 34, which in fact SR 29 now deviates from it by attempting to aggregate 27 BBA convention applications with 6 non-BBA convention applications. The various A5C groups sell legislators on the idea. Just mingling here. I'm not mad. Deal with it, right? Absolutely. So I will continue on here. The various A5C groups sell legislators on the idea of applying to Congress called A5C with false assurances, because without doing so, legislators wouldn't vote for the applications. Senior counsel aggregation language in SR 29 not only exposes whole hypocrisy or ignorance in the light of its aforementioned remarks about the SR 854 of the Georgia Senate in 2020. It also exposes hypocrisy of the A5C lobby as a whole. Councilman Gardner and his colleagues at Hunt for Liberty, both off the NATO sin now admit that the applications don't have to be identical or similar. The very opposite of what Mark Meckler and his COS project and BBA proponents have been telling people for years. In light of this important revelation, legislators should ask themselves what else the A5C lobby has fabricated. The truth is that a convention cannot be limited. The delegates to the convention are the sovereign representatives of the people, and of such would have the inherent right to propose any and all amendments to the Constitution or propose an entirely new Constitution with its own easier mode of ratification. Applications do not have the same to be counted toward the 34 state threshold, and Congress ultimately decides which applications to aggregate. Any individual or group saying otherwise is either intentionally misinforming or wholly ignorant about Article 5. The subject of application for an Article 5 convention is irrelevant. An Article 5 convention convened today for any stated purpose or subject will be a disastrous mistake, jeopardizing the Constitution and our God-given rights. The problem isn't the Constitution. Instead of applying to Congress to call a convention to propose amendments, state legislators ought to consider Article 6 of the Constitution and nullification as a safe and constitutional means for stopping any unconstitutional actions, orders, legislation, or rulings from the federal government. Nor was any constitution written solely for attorneys. It was written for the average citizen to read and understand. Education is paramount to keeping our republic and preserving liberty for future generations. Rather than taking the word of lawyers, constitutional scholars, and lobbyists who often have an agenda and are backed by special interests, both lawmakers and voters should read and study the Constitution along with the Declaration of Independence and the Federalist Papers. I always recommend any Federalist Papers too, folks. The John Birch Society's Constitution is a Solution video series is an excellent resource that can be used to learn about the Constitution and educate others about this exceptional document. And I have to agree with Mr. Gomez on this. Good job there, sir. And it's the truth. Always got to look at these things thoroughly. This Article 5 convention is nothing more than a monumental deception, folks. Don't be surprised they want things watered down, greater centralization, and try to take away certain rights, which has always been natural anyway. They can say anything about the Second Amendment, we got the Ninth. So it doesn't matter. It's called checkmate. They want to try to dilute that. I would even contact our attorney generals and go, defy it by all means. Even send them a copy of this article. Tell them read Article 6 of our U.S. Constitution. So, always got to watch out. Decentralization is the key, folks. And you want a balanced budget? Get rid of a lot of these bureaucratic departments that only 10% beneficial. It's absurd. It's been going on for a very long time. And go back to sound money. Article 1, Section 8 and 10 is self-explanatory. Everyone should study these things and share it with others. We've all been swindled one way or the other. But it doesn't mean we can be habitual offenders or the trapaholics. Well, that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to the Quorum. Furthermore, I'll leave this article on my Spreaker page. If you want to contact me, you can hit me at LokiLuck number 03 at protonmail.com. If you want to donate, you get me at paypal.me or cash.app/LokiLuck number 3. If you want to support the John Birch Society, that would be great. Subscribe to their magazine. Be on the email list. It's all good. Like I told people, some people get leery about this organization, but one thing I always tell folks, doesn't mean their information is bad. That's how I see it. Always verify. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. May your guardian spirits be with you.